Welcome back to the Fiasco Sports NBA previews. I'm Matt Sampson. Joining me once again, Tim Buttery. How's it going, man?
Good, mate. How are you?
Good. It's like we've been here for about an hour or so.
Yeah, it's been good fun though. So thanks for having me.
Before we get started, I want to make a quick shout out to Sporties at the Arca Bar. We're filming it here. It's great. Check them out. Links in the description to their Facebook. If you want a meal, just want to watch some sport, hang out with some mates. It's a great place to do so. We're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves today, aren't we, Tim?
Wow.
And what are your thoughts on the T-Wolves?
This is unbelievable. Can I just say these guys in Cleveland are the two teams you want to be analysing, the two teams you want to be watching for the next kind of 5 years.
The biggest mover in the off-season, these two. Now, I've got them ranked 24th coming into next season.
Get that out of here.
You reckon?
Get that out of here. They're gonna go big.
They're gonna go big. So I disagree. I reckon they're gonna go big in a couple of years, but this season I reckon it's gonna be about par for the course.
I'm just holding on to some excitement. So I'm just thinking rash at the moment because I just love their trades they've got.
I have them. They're definitely in title contention for my league pass team of the year, my team that I want to tune in. If there's a good matchup, they're playing another up-tempo team.
Toronto Raptors, Timberwolves.
Yeah, that's a bit of Cavaliers. I'd love to see that matchup again as well. But looking back at what they did last season, they went 40 and 42, finished 10th in the West, which it was a disappointing result for them because they wanted to be a playoff team.
It really was, and it was close games that let them down.
Yeah, I think they went. I've got it written down here where they go. They went 2 and 12 in games decided by 5 or less points. So you win half of those games and you're in the playoffs. Do you keep Kevin Love if you make the playoffs?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, would they think that Kevin Love can give them their next 4 or 5 years in the playoffs if they made it that season? Is that the thing? So. Yeah,
well, the thing with K-Love is the T-Wolves haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. Since they lost Kevin Garnett, and even those last few years, it's been downhill. They've been mediocre the whole time. Kevin Love's had never even played on a team with an above 500 record. So another year below that 50% mark, it's
well, he wanted out,
Yeah, I don't even think that one playoff appearance would have been enough to convince him. I think they would have lost him anyway. But it was a tough year for the T-Wolves anyway. I mean, their offense was awesome. They were 3rd in the league in points per game. They had a lot of offensive weapons. Kevin Love, Kevin Martin, guys, Corey Brewer, the league's best cherry picker. Ricky Rubio, he's not a great scorer, but he's a great playmaker.
Unbelievable facilitator.
Yeah. The defense though, 26th in the league.
Hideous.
Yeah, definitely not a playoff winning combination.
Nikola Pekovic, lift your game if you're watching this.
Well, Peck and K-Love, I think that front court averaged about half a block a game between the two of them.
Wow.
Yeah, but you know what? We got a strength there. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but the T-Wolves, when they were good, it's because Kevin Love is good at basketball.
He knows how to dribble the ball.
Yeah,
he certainly knows how to dribble the ball, and he can occasionally score. So, but he really knows how to ball. That guy, props to him. He is a fantastic player, and he's white, which I'm just going to put out there, which is a refreshing touch.
Their weakness, though, as we've touched on, is closing out games. That 2 and 12 mark is is not what you want. You win those games, and they're a playoff team, and they just couldn't get it done. Which that's the biggest weakness. If you don't do it, you don't make the playoffs. That's the difference between a winning season and not.
Absolutely. I think that came down to their bench at the end of the day because they just didn't have that depth that was required. You're running Kevin Love into the ground, and then by the time you get to those last minutes, a few overtime games, they just couldn't close it out.
Yeah, I mean, and Rick Adelman, who's not the coach anymore, some say that he kind of mailed in his last season there, and that execution down the stretch really wasn't great because, how hard is it to get over the line in at least half of those games? Because you're in the game, all you have to do is execute and get a stop. And they couldn't get a score, couldn't get a stop. I mean, it got to a point where it was getting ridiculous. They were losing all these close games. I remember there was a game where Kevin Love missed 3 straight free throws that iced the game, and it just got to the point where it was getting ridiculous. But clean slate. It's been moved along. We'll look at who they've brought in. Some big names there, a guy called Andrew Wiggins, only the #1 pick from this year's draft. Anthony Bennett, the #1 pick from last year's draft. I also brought in Zach LaVine.
This guy is unbelievable. Have you seen his athleticism? He can fly, and he will be an awesome player. He will be starter and an all-star, in my opinion.
I mean, a lot of people, even myself included, say that the dunk contest has been going downhill in the last few seasons. But do you think they should just take a camera to T-Wolves practice sections.
I think they should, and they have been. If you've been checking out on Bleacher Report or something like that.
The dunk contest between Wiggins and Zach LaVine, I reckon, is going to beat out the last 5 dunk contests in a row.
Absolutely.
But there's some other great pieces that they brought in. They also brought across Thaddeus Young in that Kevin Love trade, which, he's one of the guys that I feel the sorriest for in the league at the moment, because he's come from that Philadelphia side, and he's a great player. He could be a real contributor to a playoff team. Absolutely. And he's gone to the T-Wolves. Absolutely.
I mean, he hasn't been given the best of luck in his NBA career, has he? And I mean, they've pretty much stripped Philadelphia of their franchise player right there. So he's gone to the T-Wolves. I mean, look, let's just hope he can play on long enough in his career so they can make the playoffs for a couple of years. But he is getting on, so I mean, best of luck to him.
Well, there's plenty of potential in this T-Wolves side. So if he's in for the long haul, he's definitely going to see some playoff basketball. So I won't feel so sorry for him then. But Thaddeus Young is a guy that I wanted him on the Suns, my Suns. I think he would have been an awesome stretch for there, running the floor, and Jeff
he can shoot, and that's the thing.
Yeah, we saw he had a couple rough seasons from beyond the arc, but he started to pick it up again last year. So if he can be an outside threat for them, T-Wolves will be better for it. They also brought in Mo Williams.
Love him. Utah Jazz.
Yeah, he was at the Trailblazers last season as well, which as that 6-man point guard he can play that role perfectly.
And he's got a great head on him. Like, he's a mature player, and that's what you want in an NBA team, especially with such an amount of young guys. He's going to mentor Rubio, Wiggins. He's not an all-star point guard.
He was an all-star once though.
He was.
Yeah, that's one of those like, hey, I'm LeBron's friend. I'm an all-star now.
Exactly. I've ridden on his coattails for a little bit.
Technically an all-star.
But I don't think you could classify him as an all-star.
No. He also has a great head, and he's one of the players that's pulled off a headband for pretty much his entire career. So
and he doesn't have a receding hairline.
He rocks it well. He's just doing it for the look. He's not covering anything up. But they lost Kevin Love, obviously, which was the biggest loss of the off-season in terms of superstars. They lost Umbar Mute, who went to Philadelphia, which is a real interesting story in that he's been part of Joel Embiid's life for such a long time, because they're both from Cameroon. Umbar Mute is a prince in Cameroon, technically, so at least that's the story anyway. But they lost Alexi Shved, which isn't too bad, because Alexi Shved doesn't know how to play basketball.
Correct.
But one guy I'm really excited to see as well is Glenn Robinson III.
Yes.
Just for I love that second generation of basketball players. I don't think we've seen much court time, but
he's an exciting prospect.
He's on the team, which is cool.
And Flip Saunders as well is someone we got to talk about, because a new coach can do so much for a team, and he's actually a part owner of the Timberwolves. He's been around. He started at the T-Wolves, and then he's done a full circle. So it's really good to have him back.
He hired himself to coach the team, so he's.
You'd hope he's got a lot of responsibility on him.
If anything, he's never going to clash with his boss, at least, And if he is, he's going to need to seek some help.
He'll have a bit of kind of good cop, bad cop in his mind going on.
But looking at the 5 important players for the T-Wolves this season, we've got Ricky Rubio at the point guard, who's a guy that we've seen on the international stage. Has been awesome. NBA came in, was pretty good in his rookie year, but then it's sort of stagnated since then.
He has, and I mean, was he 16 when he debuted for Spain, or 17?
Yeah, he was one of the youngest.
He was, So he's had potential for a long time, and often with those younger guys, when they get out there in the international scene, it can make or break people. So I think he's just holding on to all that responsibility, and he's trying to do the best he can. So I really feel for Rubio. He's put into a team that needed leadership straight away. And he's trying to give that. I mean, his offensive game's nothing special, but his passing's something to behold. So.
Yeah, we'll touch on Ricky a little bit later as well, in more depth. But we're going to move on to Kevin Martin, who's a guy who came across, and he was a 20-point scorer for a lot of the early stages in the season. But do you think he finishes the year as a Minnesota Timberwolves?
Look, I don't know. I mean, he's a bit of a swingman, a bit of a journeyman in the NBA, isn't he?
He's turning into a journeyman, isn't he? Yeah, he's been around the block. But they've brought in Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine. So I think if we see LaVine start to develop quicker than a lot of anticipate, because he is still pretty raw.
He is. He's very raw.
He's an awesome athlete, but that jumper's occasionally not there, and he's a bit suspect on the defensive end, especially we haven't seen him at an NBA level. I think that Kevin Martin's a guy that they might move mid-year if they get an opportunity, because he does have some value on the open market.
He does. He still does. He's certainly got something to offer a team, and I think they could get some good, even more young guys if they wanted to for him. So
I think the biggest thing we'll have to see is whether or not Flip Saunders is still deluded into the fact that he thinks the T-Wolves are a playoff team this season. So if he can accept that they're not, we might see Kmart on the move.
Absolutely.
But, we've touched on Thaddeus Young. He's a veteran. He's a great player. He's going to add some leadership to this side, which they desperately need because they're so young now after trading away Kevin Love. But Nikola Pekovic, the big Montenegrin in the middle, what's your thoughts on Peck?
He's a fantastic player. Well, he is a fantastic player, but he doesn't show it. That's my opinion. I think he's got so much to offer a team, similar to Anthony Davis of the Pelicans. He's a defensive animal. But I think he's one of those players that's just very arrogant, very kind of lackadaisical on the court. He needs to just pull his finger out and start working.
Well, the thing for me with Nikola Pekovic is he reminds me of, for all the Game of Thrones fans out there, he reminds me of the Mountain, from Game of Thrones, and he's just a terrifying looking human being. He's covered in tattoos. He's about 7 foot tall.
Probably yelling in Serbian as well.
Yeah, 700 pounds. He's swearing in Eastern European and he's someone that could be an absolute monster, but I feel it's weird because he's such a massive human, but he can be so passive sometimes, especially on the defensive end. But
just looks like he doesn't care. So.
The one guy that a lot of people are talking about, for good reason, that they brought across in the Kevin Love trade is Andrew Wiggins. #1 draft pick by the Cavs. Never played a game for the Cavs, obviously. But he came into the college season last year with massive raps, but didn't blow people away like they expected because, we're living in that mixtape era. Everyone saw his high school mixtape. He's dunking on people everywhere. He's jumping out of the gym.
Absolutely.
But he's moved up to the next step in college, struggled a little bit. What do you see out of him in the NBA season?
Look, it's really hard to tell, and that's why this trade with Kevin Love was so risky at the end of the day, because he hasn't been blooded at all.
Yeah.
And similarly, you've got Anthony Bennett, who's missed a whole season with injury. They've got two players who haven't really been blooded at an NBA level. So it's going to be really interesting to see if he can live up to the #1 pick label on him. Then he's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think we were talking about it before, that the T-Wolves might actually have won their end of this trade because of the potential that Wiggins has. But that's the massive roll of the dice that Minnesota took, is, potential is one thing and making the most of it is another. So whether, he could be a 10-time All-Star in the making.
Or he could be Kwame Brown.
Yeah. Exactly. He's someone that in the college game was accused of being very passive at times, and he's gone from a situation in Cleveland where he can focus on just being, that third or fourth option and focus on being a lockdown defender because he has awesome defensive abilities already. He's an NBA-ready defender. But the ability to lead a team as a scorer and be aggressive is something that's questionable. So,
it is.
But we've seen people often criticise LeBron early in his career for being passive, and he's turned out all right.
Well, he's turned out, subpar, but he's all good.
Yeah, he's a different player to LeBron, obviously. He's not a massive human being like
Well, that's
James
the thing. And if he was under LeBron at Cleveland, we might be talking a different story because you have that mentor who's just quite possibly the best player the world's ever seen, Yeah,
so. But then even then, if he stayed at Cleveland and playing under LeBron, you could learn a lot, but his growth could have still been stunted because, there's not as much opportunity. So
exactly.
I think, if anything, this trade has really made the league more interesting this year. So, but the one guy, Andrew Wiggins aside, that we really want to touch on that's key to the success for the T-Wolves this season is Ricky Rubio. He's come into the league and was really good. His rookie season, he had a lot of holes in his games, but people thought that he'd start to grow and grow into that. But his next 2 seasons have been pretty much par for the course, and he's had the same output. So, it's a really good opportunity for him this year to showcase what he can do because he's got so many athletic wings running alongside him, don't you reckon?
Oh, absolutely. And he's another point guard similar to Rondo of the Celtics. It's not going to be a scoring powerhouse.
Yeah.
He needs those players, those blocks and pieces around him to really move, which is why watching him when he first debuted for Spain on the international scene was unbelievable. Yeah. He was playing out of his skin there, and everyone had so much hope for him. But he just needs a good block around him, and he's done well with Kevin Love. As you can see, he's had 8.6 assists per game. It's not huge numbers, but he's done all right for himself. Yeah, well, he's still at the top of the league in terms of distribution on the offensive end. And people criticise him for not being a scoring point guard because I love gunner point guards. I love the gunners, but I also appreciate guys that can run an offense and influence a game without having to score. So, he's coming into a contract year as well, which we see a lot really spurs players on because it's a difference between maybe as much as $4 million a year, which over 5 years that's a lot of money that adds up.
And we've seen players really outperform their history in contract years. You know, looking at you, J.R. Smith, Trevor Ariza, guys that come out, you know, they know there's money coming, so they really put in the effort.
They really do.
He's got more weapons this year, I think, in that, you know, he's not going to be having to dish it into Caleb all the time. He's going to have Levine and Wiggins running the wings. Young's a great scorer. Bennett, you know, could still be a really good player. A lot of people jumped on him, but, you know, I'm expecting big things from Ricky Rubio. Do you think he can step it up this year?
I think he can. I mean, I think he has to as well. There's no choice for him. Like, he's got a lot of responsibility on him, and I think he can live up to it. So it'll be nice to see him go. Yeah.
All right. But now to something a bit more lighthearted. Well, I've said it every video, I reckon, so far. My favourite section of the show, the Believe the Hypotheticals. A quick shout out to Tom Reed, Benyam Cadane, the boys at Believe the Hype NBA podcast. All the description info is going to be on the screen. You know, check them out. Follow them on Twitter, like the Facebook page. Listen to the podcast. It's a really good read.
It is awesome stuff.
Really good read on the website. Really good listen on the podcast. Their question to us today, though, with the T-Wolves, is who would make the better diss track? Andrew Wiggins of LeBron James, Anthony Bennett of Mike Brown, or Ricky Rubio of Kevin Love?
I don't even know where to start with this, to be honest. I mean, there's so many things flying around between these two trades. But all I'm going to say is Cleveland are going to have the first laugh, Minnesota are going to have the last laugh.
See, I've thought about this a little too much, I think more than you really should, is that I reckon Andrew Wiggins is a lock because he's already had a shout out in a Drake song, Draft Day. So shout out A. Wiggins. So I reckon he has the ability to get Drake in the booth. And he's going to get a diss track down. But, you know,
does Rihanna come with that? Or?
Maybe, you know, maybe he's friends with Joel Embiid. They played on the same team, and Joel Embiid says that Rihanna's his girlfriend. You know, she hasn't confirmed that, but, you know, maybe that's a pretty big all-star cast for Wiggins to have a go at the king. And, you know, a lot of people like to hate on LeBron James, so, you know, there's probably some guys hustling out there.
It's almost a job right now, hating on LeBron James.
My other reason is that I want to ease up on Mike Brown. You know, give Mike Brown a break. I mean, he got fired by the Cavs for I think the 3rd time. So, you know, he's got sacked at the Lakers. So, you know, give the guy a break. I just don't want to pick on Mike Brown. And Ricky Rubio, you know, we're going with nationalities, people can jump on a track. Who's Rubio got? He's got Pitbull. No one wants to hear any more Pitbull songs, so I'm just saving the general public from that, really.
I don't think anyone wanted to hear Pitbull when he first started, let alone by now.
So yeah, I'm doing everyone a favour and making sure that Rubio doesn't jump in the booth with Pitbull. But, you know, we've got to wrap this one up. 30 seconds on the clock, buzzer beater time. What's your prediction for this year's Timberwolves team?
So my heart would love to say the Timberwolves are going to go all the way, but my head's going to say, as you said at the start, they're going to take a little bit of time to develop because you can't expect young guys with you know, no body development or NBA experience to start carrying a team. So give them a year. They'll probably finish pretty low down in the West, I'd say. Yeah, my prediction for the T-Wolves this year is that Anthony Bennett is going to surpass expectations, you know. Wow. He had a really horrible season last year, but he came out and showed in Summer League that I know the competition's not as great in Summer League, but he showed that he is an NBA player. That's good. He's athletic. He wasn't fit last season, which is a huge thing. You see, when you don't come into the season fit, it really affects you. So Anthony Bennett, he's not going to be an all-star, that's not what I'm saying, but he's going to surpass expectations and he's going to solidify himself as a big piece of the Timberwolves future. Maybe not. Maybe bench scorer behind Thad Young, you know. So Thad Young's going to lock up that 4 spot, I reckon, but, you know, we'll see how we go. I'm still siding with Anthony Bennett. I got love for Anthony Bennett. Love it. You are biased, aren't you? You're good players. Thanks again for joining us, though. That's all we got time for today. This has been Fiasco Sports NBA Previews. I'm Matt Sampson. Tim Buttery's been good enough to join me on the couch at Sporties at the Arca Bar. Check him out, links in the description. Thanks again to the Believe the Hype boys once again. I'm loving these questions. It's really great. Awesome stuff. Really good. But yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.